frisk, as well as racial profiling, are terribly discriminatory. Here it says that racial profiling by police has evolved to fit whatever agenda they might have against people of color in the U.S., targeting Black and Latinx people during the crack epidemic, Muslims after 9/11, and Central American migrants up until today.
The tactic has a long history. It seems to mutate to fit whatever problem can be blamed on a particular ethnic or racial group. It has never shown any degree of success, and yet it persists.
$1 million question. Can policing in America be fixed?
I think the whole criminal justice machine, complex, what do you want to call it, must be vastly scaled. I think it's far too large and much too great a whole in our rural society, and therefore it's too powerful, and it just chews people up and spits them out, and does so more with certain communities than others. If you're poor, if you're Black, if you're brown, you have more to fear from it. It's a fact, right? So I think profound and far-reaching reforms are necessary in many places.
Today we see reminders of the unquestionably racist history of policing in this country. From police in riot gear armed with dogs, to officers being caught in white supremacist Facebook groups, and cops on horses leading Black men with a rope tied up like animals. The evolution of slave catchers and patrolmen to modern-day policing is undeniable.
It's important to remember that for Black people, law enforcement has often been on the wrong side of history. They were enforcing slavery all those decades ago, and then enforcing Jim Crow. People remember that. The grandparents tell stories. The photos are still there.
The photos still exist, but perhaps more importantly, so do the wounds. How can we trust a system that's so rotten at its core?
Or a weak small slice. I wonder if this has the same quality ingredients as the original whole grain spread.
Great question, Dad. And it does. And it's all the same nutritious deliciousness as the original slice, only a little bit smaller. Just like Timmy here.
My name's Lucas.
It sure is, Bobby.
Lucky's Comfort Club takes away the fear of having something break down in the middle of the night.
What's for dinner?
And may be found in vagrants, chronic drunkards, and drug addicts. Retreatists want to escape from the requirements of society. Finally, according to Merton, there are those individuals who rebel. And the rebel rejects the American system and replaces it with a different set of goals. This aspect of Merton's theory
You doing this again? Really? You don't even want to help me from my back? Keep doing this. Hey, no, you're not sorry because you want to keep doing
Mirage hypnotized by the system. I can see it in your eyes. You're not a damsel in distress, but a devil in disguise. So used to running these marks, taking them for a ride. You develop more pride than a rainbow flag. Cause to resist you, a nigga must be. Come on. So fresh, so fly, so west design. The stone here might blind you. Your man will find you all mesmerized, hypnotized by the system. I can see it in your eyes. You're not a damsel in distress, but a devil in disguise. So used to running these marks, taking them for a ride. You develop more pride than a rainbow flag. Cause to resist you, a nigga must be a fag. So goddamn thick with all that ass. Take a seat at the head of my class. Let me direct you. Soak you in my special sauce to disinfect you. You have now arrived. Now watch the whole world change right before your eyes. Welcome to the other side of the game, where we stay flying, can't bang. That same old shit get on real quick. Get your blinkers, we about to change lanes. Welcome Soul Gang. God's heart, that part, Bart. Share, subscribe within your own open heart and open mind. Free imagination leads to self-spiritual liberation and fake freedom nation. Gilligan Island ain't no vacation. That's just procrastination. Skrilla hating. She said she was tired of the fuckery, and she stacked enough money to live a life of luxury. All she needed was the Golden State Warrior with a grind like a 49er. Used to winning and doing it giant from the first to last inning. For a reason, not a season. She wanted the real nigga she could believe in, so she could start achieving and living her best life. But Mr. Right, she was ready to choose her, hopping on the next flight. Welcome to the other side of the game, where we stay flying, campaign. That same old shit gets so real. Put some respect on my mama name. Welcome to the other side of the game, where we stay flying. I love you too, Mother G. I know that same old shit gets so real quick. We about to change lanes. You're welcome. You're welcome. We're about to switch lanes, nigga. I got it on deck. I got it on deck. Off top. On deck, off top. I got it on deck. So badly, she so ready. Heard my medley, now she steadily on my line like Facebook. Smirkers with these verses, I'm a straight crook. Fresh in the bank war. water, soil dweller. Dominic Helen Keller, shitting like Old Yeller. So faithful, said I got the strain that she gladly pays for. Only thing she got a taste for, I got it by the zip, the key to caseload. Bitch just hand me the pesos, I'm facing me queso by the government block. Rocking this shit up, knock for knock, and it don't stop. The money don't sleep, so fuck count shit. I'ma let them cop on the beat, like fuck 12, all 16s. You really want it, then you gotta buy the whole thing. I got it on deck, on deck, on deck. I got it on deck. I got that good. On deck, on deck, on deck. I got it on deck. I got it on deck, on time. I got it on deck. I got that good. On deck, on time. I got it on deck. On deck, on deck.
Is consistent with Albert Cohen's work, Delinquent Boys. Cohen posits that lower-class teenage boys who experience strain will reject the American dream and replace it with the anti-American dream, if you will, which is essentially anything that might offend middle-class sensibilities. Albert K. Cohen was a student of both Edwin Sutherland and Robert Merton. And as alluded to earlier, he argued that strained individuals are unlikely to engage in crime unless and until they form or join a delinquent subculture whose values are conducive to crime. In his book, Delinquent Boys, Cohen provides a general explanation for the origin of deviant subcultures, and he applies this theory to explain the behaviors of males that are working class and why they join urban gangs. Albert Cohen argues that aside from being frustrated from not achieving monetary success, these juveniles also experience strain
turn a nigga into an economic virgin.
Middle class status.
Trying to get a nigga to forfeit.
The language of Cohen,
economic suicide.
Being able to live up to
Nigga, they mad scientists. They know how to push your button. They know how to push you over the edge, nigga. This is called strain theory. Nigga, they know how to strain your ass till you snap. Minister snap.
They are still incapable of living up to the middle class measuring rod. So these juveniles experience status frustration and are in need of a solution to solve their problem and alleviate their sense of strain. Cohen argues that these lower and working class boys adapt to their goal blockage by setting an alternative status system that essentially values everything the middle class rejects. These youths value actions which are perceived to be malicious, non-utilitarian, and hedonistic by middle-class society. It would be correct to classify Cohen's theory as a subcultural theory. However, it is also most certainly a strain theory. Interestingly, he adds that not all lower-class boys will become delinquents. Some of these actors will become college boys, or those who accept middle-class goals and try to achieve these standards legitimately. Then there are actors who Cohen refers to as corner boys, or those who accept the fact that they are lower middle class and by and large they accept this fate. These individuals will take whatever menial employment comes their way and follow the rules of society. So not all youths will engage in delinquency or become a member of a delinquent peer group, according to Crime.
Economic starvation.
Robert Agnew would later significantly broaden the focus of strain
Welcome to
theory
the family, the
by
Great
arguing
Depression,
that there are multiple sources of
invisible
strain.
empire.
In his general strain theory, he presented more sources of strain and discussed which ones are most likely to lead to crime, as well as why. He also argues that crime is most likely to occur amongst individuals who lack the ability to cope in a legal manner. Agnew also makes a distinction between objective and subjective strains. He contends that objective strains are events or conditions that are generally disliked by most people. This could include things like being deprived of food or shelter. Subjective strains, on the other hand, tend to differ from individual to individual. What is strongly disliked by one person may not necessarily be disliked as much by someone else. When strains are high in magnitude or perceived to be unjust, this may create incentives for criminal responses, according to Agnew.
Freddy's dead.
If an individual experiences
Don't be
2 or more
misled.
strains, this also taxes
That's
his
what
or
the
her
mad
coping
scientist
responses
said.
and may very well lead to crime. While most people
criminologist.
strain
The
in a legal
criminologist.
manner, there are nevertheless individuals
Doctor of crime.
who may lack the ability to cope with strains in a legal manner.
The crime
Or
doctor.
same
nigga.
individuals may have
Putting
certain
spells on you like a warlock.
personality traits which
Welcome
lend them
back,
to
Tabitha.
believe that crime is
Trying to take your
appropriate
lesson.
or that it is appropriate to associate with
doctor.
criminal individuals.
Dr. Crime.
Interestingly, there has been some empirical
Yeah,
support for
starvation,
general strain
nigga.
theory
Once you're in a
as
famine, you ain't got no
delinquency
choice
has
but
been
to
found to be
eat.
higher among
Nigga, you gotta eat
individuals
somehow.
who experience a variety of negative events as well as various relational problems. Now let's turn to Richard Rosenfeld and Stephen Messner's work known as Crime and the American Dream. This book is now in its 4th edition. These scholars draw heavily on Merton when developing their institutional enemy theory. They argue that the American dream, with its emphasis on the unrestrained pursuit of monetary success, has eroded or penetrated social institutions such as the political sphere, the family, and education. These institutions are simply unable to tame the powerful influence of the economy and are to a certain extent co-opted or devalued by the economy. Rosenfeld and Messner assert that the political sphere, the family, and education are in fact subservient to the economy, and this in turn is why levels of crime are so very high in the United States. The authors posit that high rates of crime are not due to biological or moral failings. Rather, they argue that these high crimes are due to the American dream. Their theory is an important one in that they restore the macro-level intent of Merton's enemy theory. In fact, it was not really until Rosenfeld and Messner published their work that scholars began to revisit Merton's 1938 article and see that it was both a macro and micro level study. Prior to this, most scholars only considered the micro level analysis, which of course referred to the various adaptations that strained individuals engaged in. So Rosenfeld and Messner's work, Crime and the American Dream, expands upon points initially alluded to by Merton, though overlooked by many. Rosenfeld and Messner essentially argue that anomic tendencies are inherent in the American dream, and these produce and are reproduced
What economy? The minimum wage
institutional
economy?
balance of power dominated by the economy. So the American dream creates an environment where institutions and
The
social
suicide
norms
economy?
are simply unable to exert a strong regulatory force on members of society. Institutions such as the school, family, or polity, which might under some circumstances be capable of exerting control over individuals, are nevertheless penetrated or devalued by the economy.
The drug
For example,
test economy.
the
You
authors
can't get a
argue
job without
that
a drug
in the
test
family,
economy.
the homeowner, rather than the homemaker,
That ain't no
is the one
economy.
with the prestige.
That's
Also,
extermination.
stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads may be viewed as having an inferior status. Again, this is a result of the fact that the economy has devalued the family.
Nigga,
Also,
ain't
the
no
authors
economy.
contend that
How is
today,
the
because of
economy in
the fact
America's
that there are
overpopulated?
more dual-income households, this has hurt the family. And the family is not as effective
The
as
Ku
a
Klux Klan
socializing
economy?
agent as
The
it once
motherfucker.
was,
What
according to
economy?
the authors. Instead,
Even
the
what?
family
Nigga, the police got a job, and that's locking
work
people up and
schedules,
throwing their lives
rewards,
away, and you
various
call that a job?
penalties
Ain't no damn job.
associated with labor
That sound like
markets.
Russia.
The
That
U.S.
sound like some
has
motherfuckers.
the world's
It's we in
best
a damn
economy,
Great Depression and they
but
lying
also
and they
has
acting
by
like
far
there's some
one of the
jobs out
highest
here and there ain't
crime
no
rates in the
jobs
world.
because
Rosner
the
and
minimum wage
Roosevelt
don't
and
pay
Messner
for no
would argue
rent. It ain't
this
enough
is
money to
not a
pay for no rent.
coincidence,
So
and we
what
can
fucking
expect
job? How you
crime
gonna
rates to be
survive?
much
So they
lower in
lying,
societies near
and then they
the world
paying these
that are
police to be
not
bounty hunters
dominated by the economy.
and big game hunters and just exterminate people and lock them up and shit. So what a job? They ain't trying to make no jobs. They trying to lock everybody up. So I want to know what. So fuck their job excuse. Ain't no motherfucking job, and they keep bringing more people over here every day to make sure the only job you got is to be a police and lock your own fucking people up. So
macro level focus,
they lying.
whereas strain theories have a micro level focus.
Remember the strain theory? They out to strain somebody. They ain't out to alleviate the strain and make shit equal. They out to strain a person all the way till they snap and they either jump off the bridge or they turn themselves into jail or they go get on some medication at some kind of mental health clinic that don't exist.
The goal-seeking behavior,
nigga, we on Gilligan Island, nigga.
Less regulation.
Yeah, where everybody lost, don't nobody know no rules, ain't nobody know what's going on, and everybody acting like they in Disneyland, like they in America. Nigga, ain't no such thing as America. This place was formed by pirates who brought people over here to be slaves, and you think they let them go. That's your problem. You keep still believing in fake freedom.
rules.
That's because you got a lack of rules, because you believe them fake ass rules they gave you.
United States
Told your fake ass you was free. Gave you some fake freedom.
Is a major goal for virtually everyone, yet not all individuals have the same access.
That's the product of overconfidence.
If
And
there
not
is an
doing your own
excessive
research.
Emphasis on goals with little concern for the norms, then according to Merton, the individual will be more prone to innovation. Again, innovators are actors who accept the cultural goal of monetary success, but not the means to achieve these goals. For an innovator, it is acceptable behavior to commit, say, white-collar crimes, as long as it leads to wealth. A conformist is one who accepts both the cultural goals as well as the institutionalized means to achieve them. So a conformist will work hard and study hard in order to legitimately.
Hey man, we got our own university. I ain't gonna say nobody else is fake out there, but people keep talking about they got a university, right? Well, why they ain't hitting the target? You know what I mean? And I ain't trying to like say somebody fake, you know.
But he or she does.
You know, some people just know it all, so they don't know nothing. But my point is, nigga, we don't need no college degree. We don't need $1 million. Nigga, we got our own university. It's called self-education. We don't need nobody else to to take that place. Everybody knows every leader knows who to follow. They self, they own uncommon sense. Because God ain't legal, and so that means it's going to take uncommon sense to find the spirit of God, okay? Because the concept of God ain't legal. What you talking about, Willis? If ain't nothing else legal, why is the concept of God legal? That's right. But we're going to let that go and get back to this. I love you too, Mother God.
And the rebel rejects the American system and replaces it with a different set of goals and means. This aspect of Merton's theory is consistent with Albert Cohen's work, Delinquent Boys. Cohen posits that lower-class teenage boys who experience strain will reject the American dream and replace it with the anti-American dream, if you will, which is essentially anything that might offend middle-class sensibilities. Albert K. Cohen was a student of both Edwin Sutherland and Robert Merton. And as alluded to earlier, he argued that strained individuals are unlikely to engage in crime unless and until they form or join a delinquent subculture whose values are conducive to crime. In his book, Delinquent Boys, Cohen provides a general explanation for the origin of deviant subcultures, and he applies this theory to explain the behaviors of males that are working class and why they join urban gangs. Albert Cohen argues that aside from being frustrated from not achieving monetary success, these juveniles also experience strain from not achieving middle-class status, or, in the language of Cohen, being able to live up to the expectations of the middle-class measuring rod. Cohen argues that even if these actors are able to achieve financial success through their crimes, they are still incapable of living up to the middle-class measuring rod, so these juveniles experience status frustration and are in need of a solution to solve their problem and alleviate their sense of strain. Cohen argues that these lower and working-class boys adapt to their goal by setting an alternative status system that essentially values everything the middle class rejects. These youths value actions which are perceived to be malicious, non-utilitarian, and hedonistic by middle-class society. It would be correct to classify Cohen's theory as a subcultural theory. However, it is also most certainly a strain theory. Interestingly, he adds that not all lower-class boys will become delinquents. Some of these actors will become college boys, or those who accept middle-class goals and try to achieve these standards legitimately. Then there are actors who Cohen refers to as corner boys, or those who accept the fact that they are lower middle class and by and large they accept this fate. These individuals will take whatever menial employment comes their way and follow the rules of society. So not all youths will engage in delinquency or become a member of a delinquent peer group, according to Cohen. Robert Agnew would later significantly broaden the focus of strain theory by arguing that there are multiple sources of strain. In his general strain theory, he presented more sources of strain and discussed which ones are most likely to lead to crime, as well as why. He also argues that crime is most likely to occur amongst individuals who lack the ability to cope in a legal manner. Agnew also makes a distinction between objective and subjective strains. He contends that objective strains are events or conditions that are generally disliked by most people. This could include things like being deprived of food or shelter. Subjective strains, on the other hand, tend to differ from individual to individual. What is strongly disliked by one person may not necessarily be disliked as much by someone else. When strains are high in magnitude or perceived to be unjust, this may create incentives for criminal responses, according to Agnew. If an individual experiences two or more strains, this also taxes his or her coping responses and may very well lead to crime. While most people cope with strain in a legal manner, there are nevertheless individuals who may lack the ability to cope with strains in a legal manner. Or these same individuals may have certain personality traits which lend them to believe that crime is appropriate or that it is appropriate to associate with criminal individuals. Interestingly, there has been some empirical support for general strain theory, as delinquency has been found to be higher among individuals who experience a variety of negative events as well as various relational problems. Now let's turn to Richard Rosenfeld and Stephen Messner's work known as Crime and the American Dream. This book is now in its 4th edition. These scholars draw heavily on Merton when developing their institutional enemy theory. They argue that the American dream, with its emphasis on the unrestrained pursuit of monetary success, has eroded or penetrated social institutions such as the political sphere, the family, and education. These institutions are simply unable to tame the powerful influence of the economy and are to a certain extent co-opted or devalued by the economy.
Let's discuss Emile Durkheim's theory of suicide. As we know that the literal meaning of suicide is self-killing. It's a desperate act of any individual who feels like ending his life right at that moment, that is immediately. Before Emile Durkheim's theory, there were 2 more theories, which were: first is the psychological theory, which said that suicide depends on one's attitude, temperament, and how he copes up with the challenges of life, how he copes up with the society's pressures, etc. And the second theory was imitation theory, which talked about why and how people committed suicide. So, the theory said that people are really influenced from other people's behaviors. So, if a celebrity is committing suicide, they try to imitate it when a similar situation comes into their life. So, Emile Durkheim, he rejected these theories, and what he did was he went through the records of Crime Record Bureau of France, and he studied the rate of suicide in France and concluded that it had been similar for a very, very long time. He studied 20,000 cases of suicide, and there were some conclusions that he made. He found out that singles committed more suicide than married people, males committed more suicide than females, military persons more than civilian, people committed more suicide during summers as compared to winters. People living in the urban area committed more suicide than people living in the rural areas. And Protestants committed more suicides than Catholics. There were different reasons for the same. Reasons like frustration, coping mechanism, alienation, and other beliefs. So, after this study, he concluded that suicide is a social fact, and we know that social fact has 3 characters, that is externality, constraint, and generality. He also identified that there are 2 kinds of relationship between individual and society. So, what we now understand is, Emile Durkheim said that society has a direct or indirect role when a person commits suicide, because it is a social fact, and when something is a social fact, that means there is an influence of society. So the 2 kinds of relationship that he studied, that he propagated, was integration and regulation, and thus there came the 4 types of suicide, namely egoistic, fatalistic, altruistic, and animal. Let's talk about the first one, egoistic suicide. Egoistic suicides is when there is less integration between the society and the individual. The individuals are detached from the society, and that is when they commit suicide. So this kind of suicide is known as egoistic suicide. An example of this can be when a student commits suicide due to the failure of his performance, or when he's not able to meet up to his parents' expectations, society's expectations of certain kinds of marks and grades, etc. Talking about the second kind of suicide, that is the altruistic suicide. This is when a person takes his own life for a cause. These kind of suicides take place due to over-integration between the society and the individual. An example can be sati.
It's ego.
Or if a person takes his
They lied to him and told him he's supposed to be a motherfucking fairy tale, and this nigga fell for that fried ice cream, and now his ego, he blaming his ego, and his ego saying I ain't got nothing to do with it.
So integration between the individual and the society.
He confused. The guilt got him. Overdosed with guilt. Because his ego ain't taking the blame.
They do not know what to do. The society has not told them
suicide.
Has not told them what to do, and therefore they commit suicide. An example of such would be at the times of economic recession, when so many people lose their jobs at the same time, they do not understand what to do because the society has not prepared them for such situations. And that is
They don't know how to buy some sex and say fuck voting, or know how to go create their own type of job or something, because these motherfuckers is trying to starve a motherfucker to death and lie to you with all these fake ass lies and shit. Then what? You know? Then what?
a lack of rules. Motherfuckers following this brainwash shit. Every society and every government tries to stop individuals from committing suicide for the assertion. Question number 2. The current study of suicide helps to understand society's hold over the individual, society's hold on the society, society's rate of various societies, the suicide rates of various societies, or degree of social integration of the society. So, he states that in his theory, he has stated that the society takes control over the individual, and that is when the individual commits suicide, and the variation and integration of the society
take control of the individual unless the individual is brainwashed and got his memory erased, and he following some fake ass suicide script in the first place. That's why I say a person got to figure out who lying to him and think for himself, because they just admitted that the reason this person did a guilt suicide, you know, nigga was so guilty he just said fuck it, and that is because he didn't know the fucking rules. He was too busy following the lies instead of his own common sense. And if you don't got a foundation and you don't know who God is
then you it's like you gotta go. It's like a wave came and took you away, and you ain't got no ship to fight the wave, or you ain't got no way to ride the wave, or no surfboard. So how you gonna survive the wave? You still believe that the wave ain't gonna kill you. You still waiting on the wave instead of getting out the way or getting you building a ship or a skateboard, so when the wave comes you can ride it.
And find comfort.
You never learn how to cope with this fake ass lies. That's why I say these fairy tales and these lies is a suicide script. And suicide is now in the mind. It ain't in the flesh. It's in the mind. I mean, it ain't like, oh, he did this. No, what made him do that? That's what the people were saying. What made him do that? What pushed them over their head?
That story really did sound like something we would do.
So it didn't start with him getting a gun or him jumping off the bridge or him jumping in from a car. It started in his mind with them fake ass lies he believing in. It was mental suicide. It wasn't just a physical suicide. That's what I'm saying. You don't just start at the bridge, nigga. You didn't start at the bridge when you was born. So how the hell did you make it to the bridge and decide to jump? You didn't. I told you. Them people is in control of your ego, and they're going to get you with shame or guilt. Or overconfidence. False pride.
In 1858, in the little French town of Épinal, near the German border. Before he was 40, Durkheim was appointed to a powerful and prestigious position as a professor at the Sorbonne in Paris. Durkheim lived through the immense, rapid transformation of France from a largely traditional agricultural society to an urban industrial economy. He could see that his country was getting richer, that capitalism was extraordinarily productive, and in certain ways that it was also liberating. But what particularly struck him, and became the focus of his entire scholarly career, was that the economic system was doing something very peculiar to people's minds.
The people's mind.
Driving them to suicide.
It was driving them to suicide.
This was the immense insight unveiled in Durkheim's
and this is what he studied.
Suicide, published in 1897.
At his university.
The book chronicled a remarkable and tragic discovery.
So what's good is a university if you ain't studying nothing that's making you cure yourself or think for yourself?
Capitalism takes hold.
Instead of going in a circle.
That the suicide rate
that
in the
same old recycled information.
That of Italy. But in even richer and more advanced Denmark, it was
them same old solutions that don't work, nigga, because you still believe in that fairy tale.
Was intended to shed light
on
a general level of unhappiness and despair in society. Suicide was the horrific tip of the iceberg of mental distress created by modern capitalism. Across his career, Durkheim tried to explain why people had become so unhappy in modern societies, and he isolated 5 crucial factors. In traditional societies, people's identities are closely tied to belonging to a clan or a class. Few choices are involved. A person might be a baker, a Lutheran, or married to their second cousin without ever having made any self-conscious decisions for themselves. They can just step into a place created for them by their family and the existing fabric of society. But under modern capitalism, it's the individual that now begins to choose everything: what job to take, what religion to follow, who to marry, and where to belong. If things go well, the individual takes all the credit. But if things go badly, the individual is in a crueler place than ever before, for it seemingly means that there is no one else to blame but they themselves. Failure becomes a terrible judgment upon the individual. This is the particular burden of life in modern capitalism. Capitalism raises hopes. Everyone with effort can become the boss. Advertising stokes ambition by showing us limitless luxury that we could, if we play our cards right, secure very soon. The opportunities are said to be enormous, but so too are the possibilities for disappointment. In modern capitalism, envy grows rife. It's easy to become deeply dissatisfied with one's lot, not because it's objectively awful, but because of tormenting thoughts about all that is almost but not quite within reach. The cheery, boosterish side of capitalism attracted Durkheim's particular annoyance. In his view, modern society struggled to admit that life just is often quite painful and sad. Our tendencies to grief and sorrow are made to look like signs of failure rather than attributed as their response to the human condition. One of the complaints against traditional societies, strongly voiced in romantic literature, is that people need more freedom. Rebellious types used to complain that there were far too many social norms. Norms telling you what to wear, what you're supposed to do on Sunday afternoons, what parts of an arm it's respectable for a woman. Feel. Capitalism, following the earlier efforts of romantic rebels, has relentlessly undermined social norms. Countries people don't have so much in common with one another anymore. The collective answers to even very important questions like who you should marry or how you should bring up your children have become weaker and less specific. There's a lot of reliance on the fact whatever works for you, which sounds friendly, but it also means that society doesn't much care what you do and doesn't feel confident it has good answers to the big questions of your life. In upbeat moments, we like to think of ourselves as fully up to the task of reinventing life and working everything out for ourselves. But in reality, as Durkheim knew, we're often simply too tired, too busy, too uncertain, and then there's nowhere to turn. Durkheim was himself an atheist, but he worried that religion had become implausible just as its best sides, its communal side, would have been useful friends. Despite its factual errors and its fantastical dimensions, Durkheim appreciated religion. He knew that the sense of community and consolation that religion offer are highly important to people. Science certainly doesn't offer the same shared experiences. The periodic table might possess a transcendent beauty and be a marvel of intellectual elegance, but it can't draw a society together around it. In the 19th century, it had looked at certain moments as if the idea of the nation might grow so powerful and intense that it would take up the sense of belonging and shared devotion on one's admittedly, there were some growing movements
it's hard to understand. There was love in this man. I'm sure all would agree that his misery was his woman and things. Now Fred is dead. That's what I say. Everybody's misused him, ripped him off and abused him. Another chuck in the wind, pushing dope of the man. A terrible blow, but that's how it goes. Friends on the corner now, it's being genuine. Remember Fred is dead. We're all built up with progress, but sometimes I must confess we can deal with rockets and dreams.
But reality, what does it mean?
Ain't nothing safe.
Hey, pass the joint. Brett, you dead. Fake freedom dead.
Emil Durkheim was a master diagnostician of our ills.
Freedom's dead.
He shows us that modern economies put tremendous pressures on individuals and leave them dangerously bereft of authoritative guidance and communal solace. We are all Durkheim's heirs and still have a hell the task that he grappled with. How we can create new ways of belonging. How we can take some of the pressure off individuals and find a more correct balance between freedom and solidarity.
Fake freedom's dead.
And how to generate ideologies that will allow us not to be so tough on ourselves for our failures and our setbacks.
That's not what he did. He was building a prison and he was seeing how much stress a person can take before they snap, is ready to commit suicide and just check in the prison. You know, they breaking into prison, not breaking out. Because it's the psycho ward, right? Prison replaced the new psycho ward. Prison is the new psycho ward. I mean, the modern day psycho ward. Before they used to have mental institutes.
Comprehensive biomarker testing.
Now they got prisons, right? That's the. Now they just put everybody all in one spot. Just, you know, the prison, the psycho ward, the modern day psycho ward.
Emile Durkheim is one of the three big names in modern social theory, next to Karl Marx and Max Weber. Durkheim's called the father of sociology, the formal study of society, so he focused on social rather than individual explanations for things. When looking at racism, for example, he wouldn't look at individual psychology and circumstances, he'd look at stuff like economic inequality, or media, or migration.
Yeah,
Durkheim had a name
media, migration.
He called them social facts. So
economic,
norms, culture, values, law,
inequality,
morality, population size, political institutions,
same thing we looking at in our university.
Social facts affect one another.
Sociology.
But while social facts
before you have a sociology, you better have a philosophy. You better have a foundation, that you spiritual foundation, and know what you're standing for.
Exist in the network of interaction.
That means that you got kidnapped, your memory got erased, and you gotta find it, Gulliver.
The networks that they form.
For the Lilliputians find you.
Explanations. So I've got a basic idea of what Durkheim
in the land of the giants.
Big ideas. So solidarity is the cohesion in society, what holds it together. It's the feeling that individual members have that they are a part of the whole. Durkheim proposed two different ways that solidarity can work. Mechanical solidarity for pre-modern societies and organic solidarity for modern societies. What's pre-modern mechanical society like? Well, let's say you're a bloke called Sven.
Different traditions.
White and bearded, and you believe in Thor, and you farm potatoes for a living. And everyone around you would also be bearded white people, also called Sven, who also believe in Thor and also farm potatoes. And since you and everyone else you interact with does basically the same stuff as you, they have the same experiences as you, hold the same values. Of course, realistically, there will probably be some differences and divisions. Men and women might have different social roles. There might be a leader of some kind with greater responsibilities and privileges. But the point is that, for the most part, people in these societies are bound together by commonalities, similitudes, and likenesses, what Durkheim calls collective consciousness. Religion is a big part of this, but all the little shared experiences matter too. It all contributes to the base.
That's a prison. That's a prison, collective consciousness, because anybody could act black, anybody could act white, anybody could act like a tennis shoe. I mean, I'm just saying how people want to take a fad. Anybody could act like a fad. Anybody could twerk. Anybody could do all that crazy shit, put brains in their hair.
So what holds society together?
A fad,
collective consciousness,
that's a prison, a mental prison. They don't follow the crowd. Be yourself.
Sven here, who is pretty much self-sufficient as long as he's content with potatoes, the modern person relies on the butcher and the policeman and the banker and the teacher and the bus driver and the child labourers who make our clothes and the person who makes the inner tubes work. We need each other, and that's what holds modern society together. The analogy here is that organic society is like a human body, with individual organs each doing their own specialised job to keep the whole system working. There's still some collective consciousness here, some similarity, but it's limited to some very general and indeterminate ways of thought and sentiment, which leaves room open for a growing variety of individual differences. Those are Durkheim's words, and they're a pretty good reflection of modern society, right? We all have pretty different experiences and values, but there are some basics that we all share in how we live and think and feel. One thing in particular that's valued by most modern Western societies is individualism, emphasis on the value and interests of the individual rather than wider society. Individualism is particularly visible in the culture of consumerism, the endless acquisition of things in order to gratify the self that is economically and socially foundational in the modern world. I mean, just turn on a TV. We are constantly told that we are free, unique individuals living and are all moving across the globe faster and further and easier than ever before. Dynamic density is increasing, and has been for some time. So Durkheim argues that as dynamic density increases, competition increases, creating a natural drive for society to find more efficient ways of doing things. So a system like the division of labour arise, and gradually become a foundation of organic solidarity. According to Durkheim, organic solidarity, interdependence, comes from greater density and interactivity. So now a really quick criticism. Karl Marx founded a line of thought called conflict theory. He wrote in his Communist Manifesto that the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Freeman and slave.
But if that solidarity is based on race, then that means somebody else gonna get left out, and that ain't equal. That's why they gotta give me my reparations, because that sounds like another prison. Fuck you mean? You're gonna bring somebody to take my reparations from me? What the hell you mean? Because the other people that come here, the other immigrants, they gonna stick together. They ain't gonna share with me. In fact, they gonna compete with me and then act like I didn't build this country and didn't have no contribution in it at all. And like I'm you know, like I'm some commodity to be. I'm like a slave too, and I ain't. And all they can do is sell me too. I'm just a pawn to be moved around on the chessboard, and I don't exist in the invisible game. Because it's invisible. Ain't nobody gave me no rules. Ain't nobody filled me in. So they going to be opportunities. They're going to be the next opportunists to take advantage of my lack of insight and awareness. So what, man? So I'm back at the back of the line again. I'm first to build the country and last to, I'm first to line and last to get served, last to get my rights, last to get my reparations.
You don't want to let you.
You know, I'm first to build this motherfucker, but the last to get my reparations.
How much tax do companies pay? And what goes on in the special economic zones?
Because it ain't gonna be fair, because you don't bring some other people who government backing them up. You ain't backing me up. They got a government. How I'm gonna compete with that? So it ain't gonna be fair. So I'm just gonna get I'm gonna wind up homeless anyway. So what's happening?
It's been pointed out that Durkheim,
hey, Lee, y'all brought Vietnam to America. I didn't bring America to Vietnam because there ain't no such thing as America unless it's KKK. Come America.
Durkheim's whole social
KKK. Come America.
To see conflict, and conflict clearly of this kind of content.
Now, y'all might have missed what he said, but y'all could always go watch this video on your own. Y'all see what the name of it is, so don't be acting like I messed up the video. Because if I don't, you know, if I don't say something that first, like express my own philosophy, then you won't have nothing to gauge from to where your philosophy is. Your philosophy might be organized also. But if you don't have nothing to gauge it against, then how you gonna do that? So it's like when you're looking at mirror, you say, do you think like that? And if you don't, then you know that you don't. That's all it is. It's just comparing and seeing this is real. This is an experiment, right? We seeing what's real and what ain't. And then that's my philosophy. So what's your philosophy?
Real estate and lumber has been going through the roof. Learn how you can hedge your portfolio against inflation with the Gold Hedge Fund ETF.
That part, Bart.
GLDB.
Hello there, fellow sociologists, and welcome to the Mr.
Don't act like I'm doing
this.
this.
In this video, we'll be looking at the conflict theory.
Like I'm doing this because, you know, I'm going to get paid or something. Please don't think that. And don't think I'm doing this because I'm stupid or something. Because if I was stupid, I would be acting like them other people who acting like they don't know shit either, like the Three Stooges. And I'm Schultz, I know nothing, and then I wouldn't know shit. But I feel like when I talk to certain people, I learn too. It ain't just that they learning something, I'm learning something too. So don't take this like I think I know everything. No, I'm like you, I'm a student.
The guided notes have been created by me to go along with these videos. They'll help you remember all of the important information.
Remember, every leader knows who to follow his own self.
When you're done with the video, you now have
his own common
study
sense.
guide. They will be able to help you with any reviewing you need for any quiz, test, or whatever.
Who's your guide?
So I really encourage you.
Who's your guide?
Now, let's figure out what.
And I ain't talking about no goddamn Moses and all this. I mean, no damn Hollywood guy. I'm talking about the spirit, nigga. The appreciation, the really connecting and saying all the fake ass fairy tales in the world ain't worth this conversation I'm having with you, God, right now. That type of experience. Can you experience that? Can you even think about that? I mean, I don't know. And if you did, what God would you be talking to?
Scenes of destruction. It sounds kind of intense.
I hope it didn't come out of a book.
True, it's kind of scary to think about. Because right now in society, that means that there's a bunch of different people who
just remember you didn't write it. And the way things is going, you ain't gonna even finish reading it.
Nigga. Take away what they currently have without even realizing.
So you do the math.
Interesting thing to think about. Before
learn how to count. A, B, C, D, E, F, G ain't working.
So pause this video and try to come up with examples of an oppressive
Start with
group
one,
and an oppressed group.
2, 3,
What's
4,
going
5.
on with these two groups in
Try that
society
part.
right now? What is the oppressive group doing that they might not realize they're doing to the other group? And is that oppressed group doing anything yet to try and fix this inequality that may be existing for you? So pause the video, try to come up with an example. This will help you better understand this concept. Hopefully you were able to come up with some good examples. If you're still struggling, don't worry, we're going to examine
this Sunday matinee,
I'm just going to explain though this
ain't this better than movie of the week?
I think this will help us in better understanding this concept. And it'll be easier for us then to understand how the examples connect to this theory. So the conflict theory believes in this.
Yeah, we captured this live, nigga, like
in society is we will have our
hey, like Father Time, nigga. We captured this live, like Father Time.
That is being discriminated against or is missing out on certain opportunities.
Father Divine still trying to figure.
You can see already, this is
take notes,
it's not
trying to figure out.
We have one group higher, one group lower. And what would happen is the lower group would slowly but surely start complaining, start becoming more vocal, eventually revolt and try and change the status quo. What would happen then is eventually conflict. From that conflict then, a solution would arise. Now maybe not right away, maybe this oppressed group did take them a couple tries, but eventually they would be able to gain some new resources, power or something, and the scale would start to shift. As soon as the scale starts to shift, though, this group over here that used to have things is starting to see some new perspectives. And they
at the border
surely become the oppressed group.
Overpopulation.
Now, the other former oppressed group
that's what he's talking about. But it ain't gonna be no motherfucker. It's gonna be a shift, and it ain't gonna shift back. He acting like it's gonna be a competition. How is it gonna be a competition? Overpopulation ain't a competition. It's gonna be the pie gonna get smaller. Remember, it was just a couple of predators in America. Now we got a whole bunch of predators taking a piece of the pie. The pie gonna get smaller.
Change the power. It's gonna change.
I'll repeat, this group is now going to become more and more vocal until they can start turning the scale again. The conflict theory believes that it's just going to be back and forth.
The conflict
theory.
theory.
We will never hit a point of equilibrium. Structural functionalism believes.
Remember, they're using all these as weapons against you. They ain't trying to teach you nothing.
For more of that, though, be sure to check out my video on structural functionalism. You can click the card on the top right to view that.
Shifts of power.
Conflict theory believes this cycle will just keep
even though black people never had no power, it's like now it's just like more other people that. It's like
first example,
3 or 4 middlemen. Instead of one middleman, now it's like about 5 middlemen.
Now, for our two groups,
so that's what I mean by less resources.
For society is broken up into
and the pie is a fake ass vote, being a Democrat or a Republican. Now, what kind of piece of pie? Who wants that piece of pie? Some more lies and fairy tales?
Now, oppressors
You just paying
not
taxes
necessarily
to put
saying
yourself
that,
in
like,
jail?
they're harming the other side. I'm not trying to go into that. That's
No, they're just taking them all the resources.
And our oppressed group
Leaving less
isn't saying that
resources.
they are
Nigga, then welcome to Russia,
taking
nigga.
advantage.
We got a new style.
Instead of one monopoly,
You don't know history, so you gotta repeat it.
From different ethnic groups.
So for conflict theory,
Because you
conflict
forced
theory would say,
yourself.
well, the education system in America is not fair. The wealthy
blamed
have
your
way more
ego.
opportunities to go to college. For someone who is
Instead
poor,
of
they will
realizing it
these
wasn't your fault,
opportunities
nigga.
because they can't afford college. Now, the wealthy, going off this concept that they would become blind because they are the dominant group, wouldn't see it as that way. They are more likely to say, well, there's scholarships, or if you work hard enough, you'll be able to make it. That maybe if you didn't do gangs and drugs or had an early pregnancy, that you would be able to make it. And those are your life decisions. And I've worked hard for this, and I deserve this. And it's not my fault that you're not going to go to college.
You lying.
Well, the other side of the scale would say, well, I don't have the resources that you do. I didn't have a quality school that was able to prepare me for college. I don't have a family that has money
You only
to
choose
help me those
motherfuckers
first
who
couple
helping you
years.
keep that
Or
monopoly.
I might not have had anyone who's ever gone to college, so some scholarships aren't awarded to me. Or I might not even know how to find these scholarships because I don't have access to people who can teach me how to do that, or even the
Because it's a
resources to
monopoly.
be able to find that. Now, both perspectives are correct, and they're both being viewed from a different
Or the
cultural
education
lens.
to compete
Up
in
to
the
you to
college.
decide kind of what would be the truth there. Although it's hard to argue that there is one objective truth.
The preparation.
But conflict theory would look at that. And conflict theory would say that, hey, this explains why we're starting to see in society more and more people pushing for free college or significantly reduced college because they're becoming frustrated that certain opportunities in our society are not open to them because they believe that they have less and are not able to access college. On the other side, too, you see that pushback.
Yeah,
People
ain't
think
got
that's
all your,
ridiculous.
you ain't Chinese. You ain't got 15 people helping you and tutoring you. You're just one person who don't know nobody. And all of the people that you that say that they're going to tutor you never do. And so that's when you remain a nobody. Because nobody ain't going to teach you shit. It ain't what you know, it's who you know. Nigga, and they a monopoly.
Over time,
you don't even speak their language, and I ain't just talking about Chinese people. I'm talking about any ethnic group is not going to help no African American.
Seen as taking care of the kids and supporting the family there, while the men get to go out and
keep
work,
their advantage.
and they have the income.
That's just the way the jungle go, man. I ain't gonna say wouldn't you, but that's the way human behavior is going. It's been brainwashed.
Now, today in society, we still have plenty of people who are stay-at-home moms. And plenty of people who are fathers and are breadwinners. And there's nothing wrong with that.
They thought everything was going to stay the same.
Would also say,
and only technology was going to change. They didn't realize that it was going to change with technology.
In the professional business.
Jetsons ain't ready for the
future. We're also
future.
starting to see a lot more men cooking and cleaning and being stay-at-home dads.
Technology changed, and they did
We
too.
also are starting to see more pushback. Even in the media and in different political groups, people are saying that now men are being vilified because it's gone too far the other way. Another example of conflict theory. Hopefully you're starting to understand how conflict theory works and operates, how this cycle of conflict happens, and how it views change in society. Conflict theory, again, is going to have lots of change, and it's constant. No equilibrium is possible due to scarcity and this always present inequality.
Scarcity.
Thank you very much for your time
Told
and
you they
watching
gonna
this
starve
video.
you.
Scarcity can help you better understand conflict, how it operates, and how it
Overpopulation.
changes
One middleman.
Yeah.
Before you
Now you got about 5 and 6 middlemen.
videos and also just support the channel. If you're watching,
They at the border.
I'm
It got smaller.
They at the border.
Piece of pie got smaller.
Class or someone, well,
That's basically what
videos at least
Marx was
Split
saying.
up the pie.
Your piece of pie got smaller.
Take your piece.
What you gonna do with your piece of pie?
Disappear, nigga. What you gonna do when your piece of pie disappear?
What you gonna do when your piece of pie is too small?
Disappear, nigga.
Walmart is harshing it's going to change the way people shop. And we build technology that isn't just about making money. It's about making customers' lives easier, making sure that they save money so that they can live better.
Walmart
part is pushing the boundaries in technology.
It's really exciting. Even just one line of code can impact.
Escaping the laboratory.
Escaping the laboratory.
The welcomed experiments of John B. Calhoun and their cultural
Frosty B. Calhoun.
By Edmund Ramsden and John
At the Walter Reed.
Abstract.
Mental health laboratories.
In John B. Calhoun's early crowding experiments, rats were supplied with everything they needed, except space.
Eugenics
The
laboratory,
result was a population boom, followed by such severe psychological disruption that the animals died off to extinction.
Stress health, nigga. If you gonna
The
got
take-home
no
message was that crowding resulted in pathological
quality
behavior
of life, your stress health might go
and
down.
by extension in humans.
Stress
For
health.
those pessimistic about Earth's carrying capacity, the macabre
I make my own shit. I ain't waiting on them mad scientists.
was a compelling symbol
I
of the
study them,
problems
but I
awaiting
told you, I'm gonna
overpopulation.
find the lie and then
Calhoun's
correct
work
myself.
enjoyed considerable popular success. But cultural influence can run both ways. In this paper, we look at how the cultural
I'm not
impact
a
of Calhoun's
scientist, nigga. I don't know why you don't think I'm a
resulted in
scientist.
simplified, popular version of his work, coming to overshadow
Do I
the
need
more
permission?
nuanced and positive message he wanted to spread.
You better ask
His
Father
professional
Time.
reputation was affected by this popular success.
Stop playing with the clock.
In 1947, John B. Calhoun's neighbor agreed to let him build a rat enclosure on disused woodland behind his house in Townsend, Maryland. Calhoun would later reflect that his neighbor probably expected a few hutches, perhaps a small run. What Calhoun built was a quarter-acre pen, what he called a rat city, in which he seeded with 5 pregnant females. Calhoun calculated that the habitat was sufficient to accommodate as many as 5,000 rats. Instead, the population leveled off at 150, and throughout the 2 years Calhoun kept watch, never exceeded 200.
Niggas better than creature features, nigga. You ain't scared by now, nigga. You ain't never gonna be scared.
A quarter acre is little
In a
over
real
1,000
movie.
square meters.
Scooby.
Meaning each rat would have to itself an area of only about 2,000 square centimeters, roughly the size of an individual.
Hey, your ass down on the floor.
Be that
Don't
as
you
it
see
may,
the giant looking
a
over you?
population of only 150
Don't you see the giant standing over you?
surprisingly low. What had happened?
You one of them mice.
Employed in the laboratory of psychology of the National Institute of Mental Health from 1954, Calhoun repeated the experiment in specially
A
constructed
giant is the
Roman
army,
universes.
the police, the
Room-sized pins,
president,
which
all
could be
them
viewed from the
motherfuckers.
attic
Nigga, that's the
above
giant. The
via
system
windows
is the
cut through the
giant.
ceiling.
That's who paying him to
Using a variety of strains
figure out
of
how
rats and
to
mice, he once more provided
stretch
his
you out.
populations with food, bedding, and shelter. With
So they
no
can lock
prejudice
your
and
ass
with
up
exposure to disease
because
kept
you
by
mentally
medicine,
ill, and that
Calhoun
illness
described
they
his
created.
experimental universes as rat utopia.
But you ain't a scientist, so you can't see that.
With all their visible needs met,
Prison
the animals died
paradise.
rapidly. The
Prison
only restriction Calhoun
paradise.
imposed
Prison
on his
paradise.
population was of space. And as the population grew, this became increasingly problematic. As the pins heaved,
Turned into hell.
one of his assistants described rodent utopia as having become hell. Marsden, 1972.
Scooby, Scooby, this pimpy, pimpy dude, where are you?
Moving in groups, attacking females and the young. Mating behaviors were disrupted. Some became exclusively homosexual. Others became pansexual and hypersexual, attempting to mount any rat they encountered. Mothers neglected their infants, first failing to construct proper nests, and then carelessly abandoning and even attacking their pups. In certain sections of the pens, infant mortality
See the
rose as
giant
high as
looking down on you?
96%.
See how they made the picture?
The dead
Look at him. He looking
by
down
adults.
on his On the Lilliputian.
Subordinate animals withdrew
See how they made that picture?
surviving in a physical sense, but at an immense psychological
You might not
cost.
see that.
They were the majority in the later phases of growth, existing as a vacant, huddled mass in the center of the pens. Unable to breed, the population plummeted and did not recover. The crowded rodents had lost the ability to coexist harmoniously, even after the population numbers once again fell to low levels. At a certain density, they had ceased to act like rats and mice, and the change was permanent. Calhoun published the results of his early experiments with the rats at the National Institute for Mental Health in a 1962 edition of Scientific American. That paper, Population Density and Social Pathology, went on to be cited upwards of 150 times a year. It has since been included as one of 40 studies that changed psychology, joining papers by such figures as Freud, Pavlov, Milgram, Rorschach, Skinner, and Watson.
Actually like this?
2004. Like Pavlov's dogs or Skinner's pigeons, Calhoun's rats came to assume a near iconic status as emblematic animals, exemplary of the ways in which behavioral experimentation at once marks and violates the human-animal distinction. The macabre spectacle of crowded, psychopathological rats and the available comparison with human life and their psychopath ensured the experiments were quickly adopted as evidence of sexual decay.
Psychological, psychic, pathological
come to see
behavior.
Part of the common cultural style. Shorthand for the problems of urban crowding, just as Pavlov's dogs were for respondent conditioning. Along with their public popularity, the experiments played a critical role in the development of disciplines and research fields. So much so that sociologist and human ecologist Amos Howley, 1972,
watch out for the mad scientists.
would remark that the extent of their influence was itself a curious phenomenon. Calhoun began his career as an animal ecologist. Born in Elkton, Tennessee, on the 11th of May, 1970.
Dr. Doolittle after you. In the movie, Dr. Doolittle was cool, but not when it comes to the dollar bill. Not in the dollar bill movie though. He must have been in that Panhandle, the broke movie. He must have been the broke Dr. Doolittle.
In 1939.
They gold hunting out here. Prospectors, they looking for gold. They turn your ass into a gold nugget.
Northwestern. A number of temporary appointments.
These gold prospectors, there's gold in them there hills.
In 1946,
and guess who the gold mine is,
John
nigga?
Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health. Here, his formative training and the practical skills of trapping and collecting were put to use on the
trapping and collecting,
small mammals.
Put to good use.
A vast and ambitious
Give me a whole
project to report
sack
numbers
full
and
of nuggets.
which Calhoun was to coordinate until 1956. Now married,
5150,
would settle here
not
in Maryland.
5149. That makes too much sense. See, 5150, it ain't no such thing.
As part of a project looking at ways
Because that's
to control
one too many.
Baltimore's rodent
You tripping.
population, two communities
That's an
of
ego
Norway rats
disorder.
were studied.
50,
in a row of backyards
149. Now that
and
makes
the other
sense, right?
set out in Chesapeake
But not
Bay
5150.
on Parsons Island.
It don't add up, bartender.
The contrast between natural
It's
and
psychopathic
man-made settings
logic.
portentous.
Nigga, that's
for the Townsend enclosure built
disordered
the following year,
disorganized
and for much of
logic.
his later work. Calhoun,
Self-disintegration,
1950,
implosion.
1963A.
Blaming yourself for some shit you didn't
Calhoun's interest in the relation between space and numbers was
do. Now
shared
you
by
know
the
that's
US
backwards as hell.
And in 1951, Calhoun continued
Now that's
his
mental
population
illness. That's
studies
retarded.
at the Walter Reed
If they can
Military
get you to
Academy
do
of
it,
Justice,
they gonna label your ass, and you gonna do your time
had been supported by a grant from the National Institute of Mental
in your
Health.
own mind.
And commencing 1954, he would move across the road.
And then you
to
ain't
begin a
never gonna
full-time
get out
appointment
because
at
that's
the
where
section on
the prison is at.
at the
They be trying to
Laboratory
let
of
your ass out,
Psychology.
checking you.
National
See if
Institute
you
for
figured it
Mental
out yet. If you never figured it out, how to be an actor like they're an actor and how to be a secret agent. And you ain't never gonna get out, nigga. Because they got secret agents and actors telling you lies, and you don't know how to tell a lie your damn self.
In an annex to the National Institute of
Built it. Nigga, all these corrupt ass witchcraft going on, and you ain't learned how to drop a spell back.
Ever more elaborate universe.
Fight. This is like witchcraft with witchcraft, nigga.
See that?
Lie with a lie.
He building disaster.
As word of the experiments spread,
he's building disaster. Look at him looking down on it. Land of the Giants.
Land of the Giants. Land of the Giants. The Democrats, the dollar bill, the police,
be remembered for what happened.
the Army, the Navy.
This early research received a huge amount of attention, both publicly and
Cookie Monster. The stress monster, the stress monster, land of the giants. You know anything about science?
Impacted upon
This is all scientific, and you gotta let yourself out that prison. I hope you nigga ain't scared to do your homework. I hope you like to study, nigga, because if you don't study yourself, I don't know the fuck you gonna study.
Was not only Calhoun's decision to focus on behavior rather than physical.
I don't know how you gonna make it out that prison.
Vice as opposed to the more common of Malthusian concerns. And also his careful use of language.
Creating disaster.
The transition from Baptist to Scientific American.
Studying it
like a germs and
doomsday prepping.
Relatively little translation. Constructing a typology, pathological crowd behavior. He gives the group's names immediately resonant with human types. Most successful of all,
Doctor
the
do a lot,
tendency to congregate in dense, huddled knots of squalor and violence.
Compare. It's Doctor do a lot.
The behavioral
pass. That means five. Pass. And that means five.
The creature synonymous with
behavior
and moral degeneration.
Synchronized behavior.
How the popularity of his experiments came to impact upon his later research and reputation as a scientist. The
collective consciousness, synchronized behavior. That's his bomb. He's gonna synchronize you, buddy. You're about to get synchronized.
Disseminated through popularization.
I told you to control your ego, nigga.
And even comic books. We shall see that
now ain't this better than Creature Feature? You can't watch a better scary movie out there, nigga. It ain't no better scary movie out there. Bob Wilkins would give me the motherfucking scary movie and the motherfucking Decade Award, Century Award, nigga. Scaring the shit out of motherfuckers.
More generally. Escaping into
a Democrat,
the popular imagination.
And a bum publican.
He also escaped from his control.
Scared the shit out of Democrat and a bum publican.
His work became
bombs away, Dr. Bombay.
For a wide number of fields, ranging from
Tavisto's granddad, Maurice, dropping spells,
popular accounts of Calhoun's work,
fighting witchcraft with witchcraft,
with an unduly pessimistic and cataclysmic vision.
But who you think Moses was? Remember he went in there and he knows some magic. He didn't come in there unprepared. Because you thought he was a shepherd boy living in herding sheep and shit. You tripping. Nigga was studying himself.
Through the effective
nigga had
design
Pharaoh
of space,
taking notes, nigga.
He attempted to develop more collaborative and intelligent rodent communities, capable of withstanding greater degrees of density. For Calhoun, contrary to many interpretations, population growth was not inherently bad, and humanity was not destined to destroy itself. Finally, the paper will explore how, as he struggled to have his message understood and acted upon, the scientific, artistic, and popular imaginations began to fuse. Having long been happy to draw inspiration from writers such as H.G. Wells and George Orwell, he increasingly saw his role as providing evidence for the alternative futures these authors imagined. He must undergo a conceptual and compassionate revolution, or else, like his rodents, descend to stagnation and death. He mapped the development of his rodent populations, of human cultural evolution, and his own career onto one another. just as subordinate rats and mice struggled to find more creative solutions to the problems of increased density, as opposed to their aggressive and conservative superiors. He, like other creative thinkers, had also struggled professionally. Existing on the boundary between the social and the biological sciences meant that all too often he existed on the periphery of both. His use of cultural reference to promote a more positive vision of humanity's future in a crowded
You see my reference, nigga? Do you see my references?
With his failure
Do you
to
see
secure
my
the necessary
references?
institutional support to complete his
Nigga,
project.
now why I ain't a scientist?
Calhoun feared that the pessimistic
Oh, that's
Orwellian
anthropology,
future, of
buddy.
which he had been all too readily alive, would become a reality.
Interpersonal psychology, buddy. That's theology, buddy. That's philosophy, buddy. Now, if I don't hit the target, then I apologize. If I didn't hit the target, I apologize. Martin. Hey, nigga, I told you, nigga, you better ask Father Time, nigga. You better ask Father Time, nigga. Undefeated. Undefeated. In the spirit, I'm so, in the flesh, I'm so defeated. But in the spirit, I'm so completed. Ask Father Time while Father Time is undefeated. Pay attention, pay attention. This man getting shorter every day, boy. Attention span getting shorter every day. Attention. Nigga creating disaster out here. You better be doomsday prepping, nigga. Doomsday stepping straight to the straight to God's heart, straight to uncommon sense, straight to an open mind, straight to self-spiritual liberation, nigga. You better make sense. You better write the map. You better figure out where you going, nigga, how to get there and where you going, nigga.
It doesn't matter who you are. Having rational, biological understanding of the human condition will completely transform your life into the most wonderful existence imaginable. Now, this is because being able to understand the human condition, understand every aspect of human behavior in yourself and in everyone else with 100% clarity and confidence. I'm Jeremy Griffith. I'm an Australian biologist, and I've dedicated my life to understanding and explaining the human condition. Now, I recently did a filmed interview on British radio in which I summarised the explanation of the human condition that is presented in my book Freedom, which incidentally is free online. This interview, which has been described by a former president of the Canadian Psychiatric Association, Professor Harry Prosen, as the most important interview of all time. It is actually the ultimate tool for quickly understanding this explanation that will transform your life. So,
The world, the medical world, the spiritual world, the philosophical world,
must be the greatest.
The psychological world.
A nation state can either be a republic or principality, and either old or new. An old hereditary state has been passed down to generations and is easy to rule. But taking control and then holding on to a new state is difficult. Capability is reduced if you personally supervise it. An old hereditary state, such as a monarchy, can be taken by destroying the entire royal family. This is what Alexander the Great did to conquer and hold on to the Persian Empire of Darius III. However, states that are used to freedom must be crushed. For those who are not yet princes, it is possible to rise to become one by carrying out 2 steps. Follow the example of those in the past who saw their opportunities, and be well armed. To keep hold of a new state securely, all resistance must be destroyed by using cruel, swift and firm methods. But then benefits to the people should be given gradually. The prince must win the favour of the people and dispel any hostility. But he will only be truly secure when he can raise his own army to defend against all comers. Mercenaries cannot be relied on, neither can other people's armies.
Mercenaries cannot, police cannot be relied on because they don't protect nobody but the rich people. They don't do nothing but lock up the poor people and middle class people and tax them to death and put them in the street and make them homeless. And then protect the rich people who ain't even around. They somewhere in some goddamn mansion and a protected, gated community. So who the hell is they protecting and who needs them? Because people are policing their own self. Police don't solve no crimes. Police create them.
Fortresses are of little use.
So what good is the police?
To defend against outsiders. They do not stop you being betrayed.
I mean that. What good is the police?
A prince must be purposeful, determined, and unwavering.
They don't stop crime, they create it.
Must clearly follow
and they only for the rich people and the president and all that shit. So what good is the police? They don't do nothing but terrorize and murder the poor people, so what good is that?
Only capable servants should be used.
No wonder Ice Cube and them said fuck the police. Because they ain't no use to nobody.
Machiavelli claimed that the once powerful princes
of Italy
lost their power not through misfortune, but by their own inaction and indecisiveness.
The community would be much better without the police.
But the other half is left for us to direct.
For real. Because not that nobody gonna be robbing nobody.
Needs to be beaten
rob nobody.
It is often like a
better
torrential
because
river that
the
cannot be
police is
stopped.
causing all the
During
robbery.
periods of calm, preparations can
People
be
would
made
have their own
to control
economies
and
in their own
minimise the
community without the police. Remember
Machiavelli
that.
concludes by stating that
People would have their own
will follow the
economy.
advice in the book.
It's all these laws that keep people broke and keep them dependent on this suicide culture that's setting them up and creating all of this
In
economic
1453,
starvation.
Mehmed the Conqueror was nearing the end of his conquest to bring an end to the Eastern Roman Empire. After a 57-day siege, Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Sultan, signalling the end of the kingdom. As soon as the triumph was complete, Mehmed settled there and moved the Ottoman capital from Adrianople to the newly conquered city. Constantinople was now under the rule of a new empire, with a different language, different religion, and different form of government. But Mehmed's action of settling there made his position more durable and secure. In fact, in Machiavelli's eyes, not staying in the city would have resulted in not being able to keep the city at all. In The Prince, Machiavelli declares,
New states that have different languages and customs from those of the prince are more difficult to maintain. One of the prince's most effective options is to take up residence in the new state. By living there, the prince can address problems quickly and efficiently. He can prevent the local officials from plundering his territory. The subjects will be in close contact with the prince. Therefore, those who are inclined to be good will have more reason to show their allegiance to the prince, and those who are inclined to be bad will have more reason to fear him. Invaders will think twice before attempting to take over the state.
A situation where a business or territory is acquired, containing different laws, languages or customs, will bring with it many difficulties. What is needed to keep hold of them is considerable energy and a substantial amount of good fortune. However, being present in a new area is one of the greatest helps to achieve this aim. It allows a ruler to regulate, repress and control whatever they feel is necessary. Machiavelli gives some clear advice that is still beneficial today, especially for either a politician who may have to deal with state departments, committees and think tanks, all pushing in different directions with varying agendas, or a person in business who has to deal with various divisions which have different strategic goals, or takeovers in a company which have existing allegiances. In these situations, you need to make your presence known, not just once or twice, but constantly. Get hands-on, so you can deal immediately with any challenges as and when they occur. Do not risk them increasing in severity or putting them off.
Welcome back to...
If one is on the spot, disorders are seen as they spring up.
Welcome back to the University of Knowledge, where time is priceless and the spirit never ends.
And by then, it is too late.
In today's world, being physically present is not always possible. If you have national or international responsibilities, you can't be in more than one place at once. Being present today means being engaged and informed. To lead, you must make yourself available and be prepared to show the way for others. Many high-flying CEOs are up early, sending emails and working late into the night. answering questions and offering their observations. Failure to be engaged, according to Machiavelli, spells doom. It is easy to get excited about the possibilities of the future, but the main priority should be to manage the here and now. If today is not managed well, the visions and dreams of tomorrow will never become reality. Machiavelli urges you to live for today, for the present, rather than for tomorrow.
How one lives is so far different.
In today's world, cruelty and politics will often go hand in hand. Machiavelli's teachings can help you better evaluate today's politicians by analysing them. The Emperor of Russia, Nicholas II, but also executed Machiavelli's tactics by murdering his entire family. If you inflict small or non-lethal injuries on your rivals, you run the risk of angering them but not removing the problem, which in turn could encourage and allow them to seek revenge. A prime example of this was the battle in China between the nationalists and the communists. The nationalists had the smaller Red Army back front. The Red Army began a military retreat, known as the Long March, to get away. They walked over mountains in tough terrain, with the majority of the men dying as a result. After the Long March, the survivors set up a base and regrouped. Mao Zedong acted as a leader in the retreat and rose to power, plotting and planning revenge for the next decade. It ultimately led to the Chinese Communist Revolution of 1949, where Mao and his army took power and eliminated the nationalists completely, forcing them to withdraw to Taiwan.
One has to mention that men should either be well treated or drugged, because although they prevent themselves from lighter injuries, but more serious ones. Therefore, the harm that is done to a man should be so serious that one does not stand.
This is ruthless advice from Machiavelli. It uses logical reasoning but lacks any consideration of ethics. His binary choice for leaders of treating people well or destroying them is cynical realism, as anything in between can create strong enemies. However, I don't think it is always the correct course of action, even when taking into account the fact that his advice is specifically to leaders. Consider the Mytilenean debate during the Peloponnesian War. The Mytileneans were part of a group of Greek city-states led by Athens, but they revolted against the Athenian Empire, hoping to be supported by the Spartans. The help from Sparta did not arrive in time, and the Mytileneans soon surrendered after being put under siege by the Athenians. When considering how to handle the rebellious state, two prominent arguments were put forward in Athens in the Mytilenean debate. Cleon, the general, was in favour of killing all the men from Mytilene and enslaving the women and children. A ruthless, Machiavellian-esque tactics.
Serious, and it makes me furious. Don't be misled.
Just bread, just think of bread.
Everybody's misused us, open abused us. Another junkie
playing fairy tale plans, pushing fairy tales for the man. But them fairy tales is on the corner now. You want to be a fairy tale? Why? Remember, fairies dead. Remember, fairies dead. Fairies dead. If you don't try, you're gonna fry. It can't be that high, nigga. It can't be that high. Lord.
Herodotus argued not to kill the men, but to impose penalties and take money from the Mytileneans, as this was in the best interest of Athens. The votes were eventually cast in favour of Herodotus' view, and their lives were spared. Athens imposed democracy on the rebellious land and gained financially from their decision. Louis XII invaded Italy in an attempt to get a foothold in the country. Italy at the time was not a united land and was made up of several city-states. Louis first conquered Milan before continuing forward into Florence and Rome. Wishing to then conquer Naples, Louis allied and received help from the Spanish and divided the Kingdom of Naples with the King of Spain. However, the agreement did not take long to fall apart. The next few years saw the Spanish fight against the French and successfully take Naples from the French king. Ferdinand II said of Louis,
"The King of France complains that I have twice deceived him. He lies, the fool. I have deceived him 10 times and more."
Machiavelli believed that the attempt to take the Kingdom of Naples was a mistake by Louis XII. If France could have attacked Naples with their own force, then they should have done so. But if that was not possible, then they should not have divided the kingdom. Louis should not have conquered lands that could not be kept. Machiavelli believed it is natural for us to acquire power and the riches and admiration that come with it. No criticism should be aimed at leaders for that. But when you attempt to acquire something and fail to do so, criticism and blame is fully deserved. Machiavelli shows his cynical realism by stating that success is generally socially approved, regardless of the means used to achieve it, even if the means are immoral and cruel. Conversely, failure is generally socially disapproved, even if it is as a result of your good qualities. In today's world, the press and media dedicate far more time to failures than any kind of moderate success. This is because it is more interesting to the general public, leading to more articles read and more viewers engaged, which ultimately results in more money for the media organisations. It is therefore very important to know your own limits. Pursuing higher targets and failing could result in disapproval.
The wish to acquire is in truth very natural and common, and men always do so when they can, and for this they will be praised, not blamed. But when they cannot do so, yet wish to do so by any means, then there is folly and blame.
Since most would-be princes cannot rely on inheriting their power and position, they must acquire it. Machiavelli answers the question of how to acquire by explaining a prince must not depend on others and instead rely on his own arms. This means that his forces should consist of his own subjects or citizens, not mercenaries or soldiers borrowed from a more powerful state. Using armies from other states puts a prince in a no-win situation. Victory is owed to the power of a different state, and the troops' first loyalty is to another leader, which presents a dangerous threat. Hero, the Syracusan, was a man who followed Machiavelli's proverb to use one's own arms. His rise to power was not down to fortune, but because of his own exceptional leadership qualities. Having begun life as an ordinary citizen, he was made head of the army by the Syracusans, who were persecuted at the time, and was later rewarded by being made a prince. Hero was a tyrant, and not afraid to use cruelty. He replaced his old army with his own soldiers. He realised that mercenaries were of no use, and as he could not keep them, or risk letting them go, he had them all killed. By relying on himself and his own troops, once he had acquired his kingdom, he had no trouble in keeping it.
So this is what Tupac was talking about, Machiavelli.
This is the future of identity governance and administration.
Some ruthless person.
So,
Some